10 with the BBC News, I'm Anna Preston. Messages of support have been flooding in for the England women's football team after they were narrowly beaten 1-0 by Spain in the World Cup final in Sydney. The Prince of Wales assured the squad they'd done themselves and the nation proud. The King told the Lionesses, "Let none of you feel defeated." Former England captain Faye White said the players must build on the experience for their success in the future.
They have to realise that they came so close and use that as fuel for their motivation in their next games as well as tournaments. They've got to use that now, fuel it, and we've done well to get into a final. Now use it as extra motivation to just make ourselves even better.
A 10-year-old girl who was found dead in Surrey was known to the authorities, the County Council has confirmed. Sarah Sharif's body was found at her family home in Wokingham on August the 10th, prompting a murder inquiry. The Conservative chair of the Health Select Committee, Steve Brine, has told the BBC he wants to see a judge-led statutory inquiry into how Lucy Letby was able to murder 7 babies and attempt to kill 6 others at the Countess of Chester Hospital where she was a nurse. On Friday, the government announced an independent inquiry, but witnesses will not be compelled to give evidence. Meanwhile, the British Medical Association is calling for tougher regulation of hospital managers, following concerns that NHS bosses failed to adequately respond when questions about Letby's conduct were raised. Dr Philip Banfield is the council chair of the BMA.
Here we have a situation in which senior doctors have raised concerns and then been labelled as the troublemakers. And sadly, in the wider context of the NHS, although we are trying to become better at listening, the culture of fear is still prevalent, and senior doctors' concerns about patient safety are being ignored every day.
The parents of the TV presenter Phil Spencer have been killed in a car crash near Canterbury in Kent. The location host confirmed that Anne and David Spencer died after their vehicle toppled off a bridge and fell into a river on Friday. Katarina Johnson-Thompson has won her 2nd World Athletics Championship gold medal. The British heptathlete regained the title she won in 2019 after years of serious injuries. She says she couldn't describe how good it felt.
I've literally got no words. I can't believe it. It's like being in a dream of mine, and I literally have been thinking about this for months and months, and nobody else could kind of see the vision apart from me and my team. I'm just happy. I'm just so happy that it's come true.
And Kate Winslet has performed a surprise reading at Camp Bestival in Shropshire. She appeared at the CBeebies Bedtime Story Tent for a reading of the children's book Blueberries for Sal by Robert McCloskey. It's 3 minutes past 10.
Spark. Oh, spark.
Who's that?
Sick.
Good evening. How are you?
BBC Radio Manchester.
I'm Allan Beswick. This is the Allan Beswick Late Night Phone-In. I am here with the team until 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're more than welcome to join us. The telephone number on which to do so is 0800 218 2255. And you may speak of whatever you wish to speak. You never know. All sorts turns up on here. I don't grasp it. I don't suppose you do either, but you can be part of it by dialing 0800 218 2255. And that is the only way. We don't do anything else. That's it. We just talk. And we play the odd tune, but you and I just converse. And, you do that only by telephoning. So emailing, all that other gubbins, we don't bother. So, 0800 218 2255. The team tonight, well, we've got Jane, of course. We've got Jason, and otherwise fine. Yeah. Right, so what should we do? Well, I've been saying this for donkey's years. Donkey's years. I've been saying it ever since I was a driving instructor, when it came to me in a flash, as it were. But women, generally, all these things are sexist, aren't they? But women, generally, in my view, are better drivers than men. And today, before you get on your eye, mister, today, there's a bit of statistical analysis that's taken place. It's of incidents when parking a car, and it reveals that men are 50% more likely to bump into a lamppost or another car when they're attempting to park. Extraordinary, isn't it? So men are 50% more likely to do that than women. This is because, of course, women generally, the car is a means of getting from A to B, whereas for men, it's an extension of their willy. Another survey reveals that civil servants are 10 times more likely to die before retirement than they are to get the sack. It's a small, how many are sacked? Not many. How many die in office? Not that many. But they're 10 times more likely to die before retirement than they are to get the sack. What can we conclude from this? Well, we conclude either that the government departments are working them like dogs. Well, I don't know if you ever met a civil servant, but they never look like they've been worked like a dog. Or as Willie Russell said of Frank in Educating Rita, the only crime resulting in dismissal will be to bugger the verger. And Alan Titchmarsh, as in the paper today, is quoted as saying he just can't sit and enjoy his lawn. If he spots a weed, he has to deal with it immediately. What a saddo. He needs a life. Sadly, living on the Isle of Wight, he's unlikely to find one. And Michel Roux Jr. has decided to close his 2-star Michelin restaurant in London's Mayfair. With an a la carte dinner coming in at about £200 a head, my life won't change one iota. Mind you, if they close the pizza house near us, I'm knackered. Apparently, the latest trend amongst the pointless middle classes is a garden bar. You're nobody now unless you've got a garden bar. I mean, I've got one, but mine just holds up the washing line. Actually, it's more of a pole than a bar. But the garden bar, it's the second most stupid thing you can have in a garden. The first being a brick-built barbecue or a pizza oven. Oh, God almighty. Both. What would you like, burnt meat or a soggy-bottom pizza with crap salad and salad cream on it? Dear God. And lo, it came to pass. The women were better than the men, but still not as good as the senorinas on the day. So no, it's not coming home. Not this year, not next year. But the Lionesses are just too good not to eventually become world champions one day. So no, it's not coming home. But as they say, in all the best revenge films, this ain't. How do Sean?
Morning, afternoon, Alan. I mean, not afternoon, evening. How you doing?
I'm doing awfully well, thank you. You seem to have something rather you seem to have something rather noisy going on in the background.
Sorry. I just feel really down and wrecked after today. Like as soon as Spain scored that goal, I was thinking, no, we're going to get back in this. We're done. It's over. We're finished.
Okay.
I just feel so emotional, and like it's heartbreaking because all the Lionesses are crying at the end, and it's horrible to see.
Well, people get upset when they don't win.
Yeah. Did you see the goal that went in today?
I saw the whole match, yes.
Yeah. Were you disappointed a little bit that they lost?
Not really. It's just a game. I watch it. I sort of enjoyed it. It would have been, I suppose, better for most of the people I know if England had have won, but in the end, it's just a game.
Yeah. Spain was just too good for us, and we hit the bar, and then that Kira Rose player touched the ball with her hand, which she didn't need to do because that's just give a penalty away too easy, and there's no need for it really. To keep hands behind your back. I don't think she did it on purpose, did she? I mean, they replayed it about 50 times because it went to that, decider in the sky. And it didn't look to me like she'd gone out with the sole objective of hitting the ball with her hand. I think the ball just hit her hand, which is always a risk. I don't think she did it on purpose. But the punishment's the same. And anyway, they saved they saved the goal, didn't they? So it didn't matter in the end. Well, we kicked it. It saved it, yes, it was lucky. So it was all right in the end.
I remember somebody saying, the harder I practice and the longer I practice, the luckier I get. She's a good goalie.
Yeah. Then Alex Weaver got a whack in the face with that Spain player's knee, and she was like on the floor for like 10 minutes, and the blood dripping off her face onto her hand.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know how her face was bleeding because it didn't seem that hard.
Well, she must have just been carrying a bottle of ketchup then.
Maybe on the ketchup, yeah. But you saw her face, she had stitches on afterwards, didn't she? So it must have been pretty hard.
I
know.
The face, I can tell you from years of playing rugby, the face bleeds fairly easily.
The face always bleeds there when it gets hit, yeah.
Well, it doesn't always, but it bleeds fairly easily. You don't have to hit it with a sledgehammer to get it to bleed.
That's it, no. Can I tell you what else I've done today?
Please do.
So basically, I was doing shopping today in the supermarket, and I was trying to buy lots of shopping, and then I couldn't. When I got to the till, the lady scanned all my food, and I wanted to get these chocolate bars, and then she said it was £40, and then I had £40, and I went a bit over, so I put something back, so I got a bit annoyed, and then smashed the trolley into the conveyor belt, and then I walked outside and started kicking plants and smashing more trolleys, and got very annoyed.
Why, are you an idiot?
Well, I was actually not going to do it, yeah, because all the chocolate bar because I couldn't get what I want, so...
what a shame. Have you considered growing up?
Well, I had to report me to the police because I kicked the plant pots and I didn't pay for them, and they probably cost money, so I could have got reported to the police.
You're a cretin. Have a good night. How do Ted?
Well, Tom, just to say, birds on birds.
Yeah.
Well, birds have educated human beings.
That's kind of them.
They made us fly. They made us sing. And they made us...
Can you fly? Can you fly? Because I feel as if I've been left out here. The birds haven't taught me how to fly.
I've flown. I've had also body experience on ESP.
All right. Well, there you are. You see, I've always managed to stay inside my body, but then, the size of it, there's plenty of room.
Why did you put me on WhatsApp?
Because you're crackers. 0800 218 2255. If you to join us, you can. Ted reckons he's had an out-of-body experience where he's flown, whereas the birds who taught him remain, insofar as we can tell, within their bodies as they fly. And I, as I say, have always managed to stay within this skin boundary that follows me everywhere, or indeed accompanies me everywhere. And so I've never managed to fly, or indeed stay underwater for hours on end, having been taught by the fish to breathe through my neck. It's holding back the tears and not succeeding in the case of many. They were rather less than pleased at not winning. I don't think they played as well as they've played previously, I watched it and I thought, when I watched them earlier on in the tournament, they were passing the ball and it would go directly to the person that, I'm presuming the person they were passing it to. And I think their skill level was not as high as it has been. Now, why that would be, I don't know, except possibly the occasion. There you are. You are listening to the analysis of an idiot, so don't put too much store by it. 0800 218 2255. How do Tony?
Hi, Alan, you okay?
I'm very well, thank you.
Going back to the girls and the football, the Spanish just did us today. But 9 of them played together for one club, Barcelona. That gives them a bit of an advantage.
Well, it depends on whether they're any good or not, and yes, but they're They've not done anything wrong, have they? If those are the best players in that position, then so be it.
It helps when you've got a team, though. You know, they all play together weekly or whatever for the club. That's just a bit of an advantage. But yeah, they did us today. They did a job on us. Anyway, what I was calling for, this Russian rocket that's crashed onto the moon.
Yeah.
What we're still doing it for? What they're still doing it for? Till they get to the moon.
I suppose the only people who could answer that are those that are embarked on doing it, but why not do it?
Let's get our problem solved first on this planet.
Well, we'll never be perfect.
Fires and
that's a policy of not doing anything until we're perfect, which means we'll never do anything.
Okay, so we landed on the moon in 1969, and the Russians can't do it now without crashing. Unmanned craft.
It's perfectly possible that if the Americans currently tried to land a rocket on the moon, it too would crash. You know, we don't know.
Well, it didn't in 1969 when they walked on it.
Well, no, it didn't in 1969, and all the skills were there, and all the energy was there, and all the focus was on it. But now, the focus is rather more diluted, isn't it?
How do you mean diluted?
Well, they've got lots and lots of other things going on, rather than just, when the Americans won the race to the moon, their space story was just that. I'm not diminishing it, but they didn't do anything else. They weren't sending probes here, there and everywhere. They were just saying, right, the president said we're going to get on the moon, and we are. And that's what we're going to do. And all our energy and resources is going into that. And that way they were able to achieve it. If they tried to do it now, they wouldn't have that concentrated effort of nothing else. They're doing all sorts of other things. So maybe they too would have an issue with it.
Well, the issue could have been it didn't happen in 1969 if you're going to go...
Well, yes, you've said that. I thought we dealt with that. But no matter, say it again if you wish.
No, I'm just saying 1969 they got there. If they got there.
Yes, they did. Which are you going with? They got there or they didn't? So you might as well make your mind up now.
I don't know, Alan. I don't know.
You don't know. So.
Right. The second point, artificial intelligence.
Hang on. Just before you go on to the next one, do you believe that the Russians crashed a rocket on there this week? Do you believe that?
They owned up to it. Why would they do that if they haven't?
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm trying to find out what you believe.
That's just on the news today. They've admitted they've crashed the rocket.
Well, it may have escaped you at the time, but the Americans, when they landed a person on the moon, it was on the news, so that must have been true as well, if that's your yardstick of what's truthful.
No. Why would Russia say the mission has gone wrong?
I can't speak for them. I'm just trying to find out the process you use to decide whether you believe something or not, and you've not made your mind up yet, despite the fact I believe you said it happened in 1969, so you've got many years to decide, but you still haven't decided whether the Americans did or did not land on the moon, but you do believe the Russians because it was on the news, so that's fine.
No, the Russians would admit to a catastrophe today till they land something on the moon. They won't admit that it had crashed into the moon, would they? Where's that going to benefit Russia?
I am not a spokesperson for the Russians, but it may well be that if others knew that they had done it, the wisest thing to do would be to own up to it, because to deny it when it's so patently obvious is ludicrous. But I don't know. I don't know their thinking. You appear to, but I have to own up to not doing.
Well, we're trying to land on the south side of the moon. Is that the dark side? I don't know. The South Pole.
I don't know. I suppose if it has poles, and I suppose it must, then they're at the top and bottom like ours are, but I'm not sure.
Well, they reckon they were looking for ice or water, somewhere nobody's ever been. So the Russians were trying to make a first, I think, but it's gone wrong.
Well, when you asked earlier why are they doing it, you appear to have just answered your own question.
I'm just more worried about our planet and all the money they're spending and billions and, everyone's starving. The world's on fire. Let's get this sorted out first.
Everyone isn't starving. In fact, I'm rather overfed.
Oh, okay. No, you're not. You know what I mean, Alan.
I only know what you say. I'm unlike you, where you're prepared to guess what the Russians are thinking. I'm not even prepared to guess what you're thinking. I only know what you say.
We've got a lot of problems on Earth. Let's not tackle the moon yet. Let's get this problem sorted out first.
Right.
The Earth.
All right. So how long do you think that'll take? We've been at it now for, mankind? What is he, 60,000 years or something? So we've been trying to sort it out that long, so we should leave the moon for what? Another 60,000 years?
Did you say 60,000 years?
I don't know. I'm just guessing, but let's go with 60,000.
Million. Let's go 60 million, and that's short.
I don't think... Has mankind been on Earth for 60 million years?
Yes, I'd imagine so.
You're imagining, okay.
Well, you go to speak to David Attenborough and all them people. I'm sure we have.
Well, I'm sure he's not going to ring in, so we'll have to go on your guess.
Right. Yeah. Can I go on to my second point?
By all means.
That's just been on the programme. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
They're now saying that could be a danger to the human race.
Yeah.
The programmers of all these computers are putting 2,000 trillion words into them, and they might start taking over.
Right.
The human race.
Okay.
And even the professors I've just been listening to are getting a bit worried and concerned.
Right.
What's your view on that, Alan?
I didn't see the programme, so it's hard to know.
You must have been hearing about it the last few weeks. It's on telly all the time, artificial intelligence. Is it a danger?
Yeah, they keep saying artificial intelligence. No one's yet convinced me that it is of itself a danger, because, you can just turn these things off. I've got a very clever computer here, but it needs me to turn it on. And if I turn it off, it's not that clever. It's just basically a window that doesn't see anything.
Yeah, but it might be that they won't let you switch it off.
Well, where are they going to get their energy from? Suck it out the air. Ask them how they do it. I can save a fortune on the gas bill.
Yeah, good point. All right, Alan.
Good night. Oh, just before you go, Homo sapiens, you may have heard of them, they're like you. Well, some of them are. Homo sapiens evolved around 300,000 years ago, and the more complex creatures with a sort of, I'm reading this off the internet, it may be absolute garbage, that might be described as having behavioural modernity 65,000 years ago. I was 5,000 years out. You, however, were 6 million out. But, it's not a race. Do have a good night. 0800 218 2255. How do, Mike?
Hello and good evening. By a coincidence, presumably happy, I wanted to talk to you also about the Russian moon rocket, perhaps less contentiously than the previous caller. Alan, have you any more info? Was it into? I think I only heard about it early this morning, where it said very simply, the Russian moon rocket has crashed into the moon. Have you any more details?
Well, other than no, not really. No. I believe because it was earlier this week when it crashed, or when the first reports of it, and I think I think, I could be wrong, that they were. I mean, clearly there were instruments and technology on a probe, as it was called. So it was going to land safely, as it were, and then do some discovery work. But one presumes it's not going to do that now.
Had they hoped in this instance to return it to Earth?
I'm not aware. I don't know. I don't know how they would do that, really. Because it was the whole thing that went down, wasn't it? Rather than like when the times they landed on the moon. They just had a little bit and something else carried on circling the moon, waiting for them to come back again. So I don't know.
Of course,
but it's probably like the Mars rover and all that sort of thing. They have a process whereby the rover itself can analyse stuff. It can first of all gather in stuff and then analyse it and send the reports of its analysis back.
Well, I'm sorry it's happened for what that's worth, but because it's such expensively gained knowledge if you have a success, isn't it? So if there's a failure, it's pretty grim.
Well, I suppose in exploration, when you're doing things at that distance and with the risk that carries, you have to be prepared to absorb the failures into the overall success of the mission. They won't have not learnt anything by it.
No. Another thought did occur to me. Given the weight of this machinery, the hardware, and the speed at which it will have been travelling, will it have, sounds an odd thing to say, but could it have done any sort of orbital damage to the moon?
I think most unlikely. I mean, compared to the size of the moon, it's like dropping, I don't know, a tiniest pebble in a lake.
Yeah.
I suppose there's an appreciable... There is a change, like spitting in the ocean. It's got deeper, but you wouldn't know. So I don't know. Yeah. But most unlikely.
Yeah. Well, for instance, I raise the point with you because they talk about when is it a meteorite hits Earth of a certain size, and it doesn't have to be particularly big. It can do the sort of damage that has a deleterious effect.
Well, I suppose all those that come to Earth must do something, but what that something is, I've no idea. And again, most of them, although they seem to believe that a dirty great big un wiped out the dinosaurs, or the consequences of the dirty great big un wiped out the dinosaurs rather than the collision itself doing it. And so, yes, that would have an issue. But how much and for how long? Going to have to be a big beggar, isn't it? Yeah. And that we haven't had a large collision with a meteor/ite for a very, very long time.
No. Well, from your copious readings of the newspapers, you might be able to get greater detail tomorrow in whatever gets published overnight, if there is any information. There's not usually very much that comes out of Russia, is there?
Well, no, I mean, we know what it was trying to do. It was supposed to have a soft landing and then at the South Pole, and then do some exploration work, scientific exploration. There's a belief among some scientists that the moon has at least the residue of water, if you like, in the rocks. And so I suspect they were trying to establish whether that is so. They're not the only ones doing it. The Indian space team, or space lot, are doing much the same thing.
I don't know how we'll get on with this next subject. I was intrigued last night when in common with myself, you claimed to be an optimist. Indeed, same with me too. But you were expressing optimism about the world and how, or the earth, and how we, are going on at the moment. My optimism is tainted, I'm afraid, by what we might term events of relative, 10, 20 years. I think the chance of fire and flood seem far more prominent than they used to be. Don't you agree that much?
Well, we keep being told that, so it's hard to argue against it, but whether I believe it or not is irrelevant. It's whether I believe it is existentially consequential. I suspect it's not.
I don't think we took up this business about global warming as ardently as we appear to be doing now, basically at 5 to midnight.
Well, we didn't, but then if we as the UK, then we are now pulling all the stops out and doing extraordinary things, but quite frankly it make not a jot of difference, because from what I read we only add 1% to global warming, so there's 99% out there having sod all done to it.
Good.
I mean, the world will change. It has always changed, and the world will change, and at some point it will change and mankind won't survive it, like the dinosaurs. Everything gets wiped out eventually. But I don't think it's going to be next Tuesday.
Did you... that was a wonderful comment that you made last night about this marvellous series that's been on BBC Two television about the history of the world.
Did
you enjoy today's?
I've not seen today's yet. So.
Oh, you haven't seen today's?
No.
Margaret was in strong agreement with you. What a wonderful programme, she said. I was away doing... I wish I'd seen it. I think it probably gets a repeat during the week, doesn't it?
I would imagine so. I suspect I've recorded it. I rarely watch live telly. I think there isn't much more than the news and sport that I watch live.
Yeah. Just before I leave you, it was something I mentioned to you when I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago. I take it that there's no further news from your overlords about... clearly you're going to go on beyond the end of August.
Yeah, we've established that. I will be here beyond the end of August.
Right.
For how long? I am the faintest.
Right. No. Oh, gosh. Okay, well, I've very much enjoyed talking to you. Thank you ever so much.
That's why I'm here. How do Peter?
Hello. On that subject of the Russian spaceship crashing, I thought it said it was it failed after encountering problems as it was going into its pre-landing orbit. Is that right?
That's what I've read.
Yes, and I think it was looking for frozen water on the south pole of the moon. Have they actually found water on the moon before then?
Well, they haven't found flowing water. There isn't a river that they're aware of.
Well, then.
They may
so
well
there
have
is a
found...
on the moon, then. Yeah, sorry.
I don't know is the answer to your question, but they may well have found evidence that water previously existed on the moon. Whether it's still there or not, they don't know. Much the same with Mars. They've just been saying that there was definitely there was water on Mars, and they even believe, I think I'm right in saying, any stargazers can come and correct me, but I think I'm right in saying that they currently believe that there may well be Mars, for want of a better expression, locked up in the rocks. Water locked up in the rocks of Mars.
On Mars or on the moon?
Well, that was on the Mars, but I believe they may well hold the same view about the moon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
your previous, the caller before Mike was going on about how wonderful America was because they got to the moon in 1969. But they weren't without their problems, because they had Apollo 13, which failed, and then they had Challenger, of course, which was well after that. I think it's about 1985, wasn't it, when that blew up. So, it's not as though America hasn't had its problems in space. That was due to a poor seal on the O-ring or something, wasn't it, that one?
I think it might have been, yeah, something like that.
I think that's what they found, and that's the whole seal came adrift, and the whole thing blew up, and that had the first female lady in space for America, wasn't it? On that one, a teacher, wasn't it?
Was she the first?
No, she might have been the first. She was probably the first civilian female, was it?
Well, I don't know. You're telling me. I'm
not guessing, but I'm going off a very poor memory. I'm sorry.
All right.
But that's what I seem to recall. That she was a teacher, and she's one of the first females in space, maybe civilian female. That may have been it.
She was certainly.
But like I say, the
the
point
person
I'm
was
trying to
certainly
make is
female.
that America hasn't been without its problems in space.
No, it hasn't.
So not everything. And Russia have had their problems, and they do tend to bend the truth from time to time. So, but I don't think they bend the truth on this one. I think they genuinely did. Their spaceship did crash, but not being there, I couldn't tell you.
No, indeed.
But
I work on the basis that everyone who tells me something as a nation is probably not being entirely honest.
Yeah, I think
including our own nation.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Well, Mr. Johnson wasn't quite super honest about his goings on in COVID, was he? For example.
Well, so we're told, and I'm prepared to believe it.
Well, we've actually seen some video footage. I don't know whether that's AI footage or real footage, but it seemed to prove what the news media was saying rather than what Mr. Johnson was saying. But anyway, and haven't he admitted some of this now or not? I think
he's paid fines for some of it.
Well, exactly. The police fined him for one thing, but since then there's been a lot more video footage come out on ITV and other sources, haven't there? The press and what have you. And I think some of his own have stopped him in, haven't they?
But once they're not leader anymore, people are less loyal than when they were leader.
Well, exactly. Like Mr. Cummings, for example. Anyway, that's not really why I came on tonight. I came on tonight to ask you a question. This capped rate for gas and electricity that we've talked about in the past, do the companies are they forced to adhere to that, or can they still charge what the heck they like?
I don't know is the answer to that, but it's
because the reason I'm asking
I think they're legally bound by it. I think the regulatory authority says this is the maximum you can charge ordinary customers, civilian customers, as it were, rather than businesses.
But the reason I'm asking this question is I got this huge gas and electricity bill last week, and it's for this time of year. I've never had anything so big. So I thought, right, let's just sit down and write down, and I phoned 6 companies on Friday afternoon to see if there was much difference in their rates. And one of them, my actual own company, said that don't fix your rate now in the summer because come the 1st of October, my current company, are going to lower your price by at least 7%. So if you fix it now, that would be lunacy because it'll be cheaper and you'll have fixed it at a higher price. So, well, thanks for telling me. Then I took note of all the other 6 companies, and then the last one I phoned up were incredibly abusive and would not give me their rates, either the unit rates or the standing charge. They asked me about a million other questions that were totally irrelevant, and I said to the guy, I just want your rates, mate. And he said, well, I'm not giving you them, and slammed the phone down on me. And I thought, wow. And when I checked, they're one of the most profitable companies in the world, let alone the UK. And I thought, well, why is one of the most profitable companies in the world not able to give me the rates. And under the Freedom of Information Act, don't they have to, Alan?
Well, if you submitted a Freedom of Information request, they might have to. But they don't have to tell you if they don't want.
I didn't stop there. I actually rang up the same number and asked to speak to a manager, and he then said that guy shouldn't have slammed the phone down on you, and you don't need to answer all these questions just to get the unit rates and the standing charges. And he gave them me anonymously, and in fact, he didn't even want to know my name, my postcode, or anything. So, why on earth? And the other guy said, my bosses have told me I've got to ask all these questions, and because you're not answering them, that's it. I'm going to terminate this call. I thought, brilliant. And I played him a copy of the call. Sorry.
Well, one of them's lying.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm saying. Somebody must be lying in the same company. Whether it's him or his manager, I don't know who to believe. Whether the company policies don't tell them what the rates are. And the reason he didn't tell me that company's rates is because that company was the highest of the 7 I rang. But you
can't proffer that as the reason he didn't tell you, because the company, when somebody above his pay grade was asked, they told you. So it clearly isn't a secret. But anyway,
they are the highest. They were the highest, that particular company. They were the highest, and they were above the cap.
But in the end, it doesn't matter. Peter, you ring people up, and if they're abusive to you, you don't do business with them, whatever they're giving away.
Well, that's what I said. I said, now you've given me the rate.
I'd have just said that at the beginning. Say, can I have the rate? No, right, goodbye. Peter, you're just making problems for yourself. You ask a question. If they're not prepared to answer, you say, fine, goodbye. Phone down. Over.
Yeah, well, in effect, he put the phone down ahead of me, and as you say, I won't be going with that company again, whether they're cheaper or not, because they're so abusive. I'll stick with the one I'm with, quite honestly.
I've lost the will to live. I don't care. You had a dissatisfactory call with somebody, you rang, spoke to somebody presumably above him, and you got the answer you wanted, or you got an answer that you were prepared to accept. And quite frankly, if I rang a company and their employee was abusive to me, that would be the end of my relationship with that company. I wouldn't ring his boss. I'd just think, why am I going to waste another tuppence or 2 seconds of my life? Should we move on?
His boss actually gave me 50 quid for the abuse when I played him the tape of the call.
So should we move on?
No, I'm quite happy with that. I've got 50 quid out of a company I've never
So should we move on then? We now know the whole story, Peter. We're not going to learn anything new by you droning on.
All right, bye then.
Bye. How do, William?
Oh, good evening, Mr. Beswick.
Good evening.
It's a rather delicate subject I'd like to discuss if possible. And it's, only sympathy and empathy goes out to the children who were involved in a recent case of somebody now being found guilty in a court of law, that before this person has been found guilty, that there's a programme coming out next week, I believe. It's like a convulsed part of the case. It's like, a panorama type programme or whatever, into the trial and what have you. I just find it a bit disturbing that before the person or the legal counsel has a chance to make any sort of appeals, because apparently there's a dispute going on with the government and that now over the involvement of the organisation who employed her, It just seems like it's a bit like a second trial by television, like
Well, documentary making means that it is the nature of documentary making, whatever entity you broadcast on, or whether you're just writing an article in the newspapers, means that you're going to have people make allegations and give the people who the allegations are made against the opportunity to respond to those allegations. If we just sat and waited for the whole legal process to come to its final decisions in every part of the case, you would never have a documentary. It wouldn't need to exist.
Yeah, but I just find it a bit rather perturbing that, it's been 12 months since the Sarah Everard murder, and that's coming out this week as well, and we've just had a chap who's been released from prison because the prosecution failed to divulge to his defence things which could have proved his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like perhaps there's stuff in this documentary going to come out.
I'm not really sure what you're expecting. Are you expecting that the documentary makers, be they Panorama or any of the other stations, are you expecting that they don't make any programmes about the issues that are being discussed and debated, if you like, before there is a final decision in every aspect legally? Is that what you're...
No, I'm not saying that at all, Mr. Beswick. I'm just saying that it's been over 12 months since the Sarah Everard murder, and that's coming out later on this week, and before this person has just been found guilty in a court of law, before a defence has any chance to go to an appeals process, it's going to be like another trial by television, shall we say,
Well, it's not a trial. It's the person has been convicted of the offences, and the television people, the journalists, are now going to attempt to get to the bottom of what went on and how it came about. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if a decision... Go on.
That's what I'm saying. Before the defence has had a chance for this investigation by the government to reveal the facts of what happened within the employers who employed this person, they've not even finished any of their investigations yet, because there's apparently whistleblowers or whatever,
Well, as it stands at the moment, there is no legal reason why a documentary maker or a print journalist there's no reason why they shouldn't or can't attempt to get to the bottom of what went on, how decisions were made, why they were made, who they were made by. That is all perfect journalistic game at the moment. If any individual or institution was charged over the matter, then that would be a different kettle of fish, but they're not. And if the authorities are not prepared to charge anybody, then until they do, it's fair game.
I just find it disturbing that there's a 12-month disparity between a policeman being found guilty of a murder and employee being found guilty of murders, should we say. And, there's not been 12 months leeway in her case, I just find it a bit disturbing that it's a big brotherish or something, because they haven't done the final investigations by the employees as to what has happened in between the person being moved from her post to the police investigation, shall we say.
Well, there was quite a lot of information that came out at trial, which is public property, if you like, which is reportable, and the documentary will now analyse how that information came into being, how the processes, what processes were used, why, for example, and we know this to be the case, it came out at trial, why were doctors who were saying, we suspect that this nurse is killing babies, why those doctors were required to write a letter of apology to that nurse, when the court has now decided that those doctors' suspicions were correct. I think that's something we ought to know.
Oh yeah, but that's what I mean. There's things.
Well, the hospital's not going to
tell us.
Well, we just might, you know.
Well, they failed to divulge to the parents of the children for months before, didn't they? You know, and
when you say they, to whom are you referring?
The employers.
Yeah,
you know, before they got police involved.
Yes, the hospital stand accused of contributing by negligence to the deaths of those babies. That's what they stand accused of. I don't mean legally, but that is the allegation that the courts seem to have, or the evidence presented at court seems to suggest, that they failed to act in a responsible manner. The allegation goes that, and I'm not a documentary maker, but the allegation goes that they were more interested in protecting the reputation of the hospital rather than getting to the bottom of the allegations that these doctors made. Now, if that is the case, it is absolutely crucial that as soon as possible we find out how that came to be. And the reason I say that is because it could be going on elsewhere, and it has gone on elsewhere. It took years and years to get the Bristol Children's Heart Unit to finally be brought to book for failings in their administration, he says, making it as gentle as he possibly could. And had not the press continued to hammer away at their door and say, we are, on the behalf of the people of this land, entitled to answers, kids would still be dying in the heart unit at Bristol Hospital.
Well, no, the main worry is that, you know, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and it involves...
We are human beings.
Sides, and, you know,
we are human beings, and we make mistakes, and when we make mistakes, many of us, including me, hope to God we get away with it. And sometimes we don't own up, and sometimes we lie, and sometimes we obfuscate, I can't say the word. And the press's job is to get past that and find out what the truth is. And the day the press stops doing that, you and I, William, are screwed.
I understand that. You just look at the Daniel Morgan case, like, you know, that took nearly 30 years, you know.
Yeah,
that was a state again, wasn't it, covering up, you know?
Yes, and the way you stop it is by telling the public that's what's happening. And the way you tell the public that's what's happening is by journalism. And the first thing a dictator does when he, or occasionally she, takes power is kill the journalists. Because they know.
Well, we never got round to a Leveson too, did we? Matt Hancock seen to that, like, you know. Anyway, thanks for your comments, Mr. Bedrick.
My pleasure, William. Have a good night. How do Trevor?
Good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
I've been up to the Edinburgh Festival for a few days, the Fringe in particular.
Did you sell many tickets?
Funnily enough, I was not performing. Had I been,
all right.
I don't think I would have sold many tickets. I was in audiences at various things. But I'm prompted to ask, have you ever been? And if so, what did you make of it?
Well, the answer, the second question is redundant, because no, I've never been.
Fair enough. I'm not allowed to do cryptic crossword clues anymore, you told me a couple of weeks ago. So I'm afraid you've got a couple of jokes to bear.
I hope they're not stolen from the festival.
Oh, of course not.
Okay.
No. Did you hear about the Edinburgh visitor who got lost? He approached a police officer and said, "Is there a B&Q in Leith?" "No," came the reply, "but there are 2 Ds and 2 Es in Dundee."
Yes, very good.
Yeah. And secondly, did you hear about 5 ants moving into a flat? Then another 5 ants joined them, and they became tenants.
Tenants.
Yes, there we go.
Right.
My favourite online news headline today: King Charles does not want Prince Andrew to come out of the freezer, sources reveal. It had me chuckling for a number of reasons, not least because I didn't even know that Prince Andrew had been put in the freezer.
Yeah, it does, yeah. one rather hopes that it's not just a reference. He's lying there with his hair all silver and stiff. You know. There you go. Yes, he's. I don't think his brother is too enamoured with him.
I think that seems to be the case. And just finally, Alan.
One of the odd things about Andrew is that they've removed the king has removed, or whoever it is that does it, his entitlement to use H or H, His Royal Highness.
Right.
But they can't stop him using it.
No, well, indeed, which is a bit bizarre, isn't it? Really, but
yeah, well, there you go. Shows you what they're worth. Not worth a carrot.
There you go. Finally, you already touched on this, but I think it's a more serious issue I'm talking about now. The whole issue, and I'm not going to talk about specific hospitals or a specific case, but the whole issue about whistleblowing in the NHS. And you may have gathered I follow the news moderately closely and read quite a lot and so on. And there have been so many cases that I can recall over the last few years of people who attempted to whistleblow and effectively been intimidated in various ways. And surely this is something that needs tackling once and for all. Every time something like that happens, there's talk of, dealing with it and making sure people are free to raise concerns and so on. But the BMA, now, of course, they're effectively a doctors' trade union, but they're talking about a culture of fear in hospitals and doctors' concerns about patient safety being ignored every day. That's completely unacceptable, and why isn't it being challenged and dealt with, is what I would say.
Well, we learned during the course of the court case that's just come to a conclusion that doctors, consultants for God's sake, these are guys at the top of their game, almost impossible to replace. There is a national shortage of them, forced to write a letter of apology to a nurse because of the allegations they've levelled against her. And you just wonder, why didn't one of those consultants say, screw it, I'm not signing it, so do what you're going to do, I'm not signing it. Now, if you sack me, I'll see you at the tribunal. If you don't sack me, I'll go on gardening leave. And that's happened in the past. And there is one consultant, and I don't know his name and I don't know the hospital, but he's been on gardening leave for about 5 years, which means he's getting fully paid to play golf.
Yeah. But then, effectively, that's our money, that's our lack of treatment.
God, yes.
I mean, it's not a satisfactory situation, is it?
No, it's an absolutely diabolical situation. I think the Prime Minister concerned was David Cameron, I may be wrong, who introduced the Whistleblowers Charter.
Oh, yeah.
It never really changed the situation that much, because it's almost impossible, isn't it? I mean, if you give Joe Bloke, you, me, and anybody else, the power to make allegations anonymously, then where does it end? How much, how do you protect the organisation, which needs protecting, against the malicious whistleblower? And it's very, very difficult. There is a Whistleblowers Protection Act.
Oh, right.
I can remember there was a man called Graham Pink, and I interviewed him.
I remember that name, definitely.
About it must be 30 years ago.
Long time.
And he was a psychiatric nurse working in the Northwest, and he decided that he'd seen enough and he wasn't prepared to allow the ill treatment, and I don't mean malicious ill treatment, but the negligent treatment, if you would, of patients, and he decided that he was going to come out, as it were, and take on the authorities. And his life was made hell, absolute hell. And I think it was basically, it wasn't anything like beating him up or something. It was just the standard of care. I interviewed him a number of times, but did he change anything? No. I mean, I remember reporting a couple of years ago that he died. Everybody does. But I mean, it was just disgraceful the way he was treated, and all he was trying to do was to get the hospital to treat its patients better. And more importantly, to stop treating them poorly. But he got nowhere. He got absolutely nowhere. And that was donkeys years ago. Absolutely donkeys years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the BMA, but I know various patient organisations and patient charities have talked about, a long history of whistleblowers being ignored, sidelined, ill-treated effectively, not physically perhaps, but ill-treated, even sacked. I mean, it's completely untenable, and despite whistleblowers charters and various other things, this is still going on, and somebody surely has got to tackle it. I mean, I do appreciate the difficulties you outlined about possible malicious whistleblowing and so on, but really, somebody's got to tackle this, because every time a case emerges, people's lives have been at risk and in some cases lost, and it's totally unacceptable.
Absolutely. I don't know anyone that disagrees with you that doesn't walk around a hospital wearing a suit and carrying a clipboard.
Yeah.
Everybody else, who are dealing with patients, will almost certainly agree with you. And it's just awful.
Thanks, Alan.
Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. I've just been trying to look up the Whistleblowers Act, and it purports attempts to give some satisfaction to whistleblowers, but quite frankly, 1989, is that what it's telling me here? The Whistleblowers Protection Act. No, that's the United States one. No, there we go. Anyway, 0800 218 2255. Oh my word, I'll do to another Trevor.
Hi, Alan. Are you okay?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah. Good. I'd like to talk to you about Schindler's List. I watched the film again last week. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Liam Neeson. Yeah. Brilliant
film. Seen it a couple of times. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
But what strikes me is the lack of imagination of the Nazi guards, particularly when he's hosing down the train, and so he even tells them to extend the hose so he can hose down even further parts of the train on a hot day. And they thought it was a joke, but he was saving their lives. And secondly, when he's got he's called Hahn or something, Otto Hahn, the Nazi commandant, and he's got him drunk, and he's falling about, and he says, what's real power? And he looks you in the eye and he says, it's being able to say, I can forgive you, I can let you go, and I don't have to punish you. And it's just that, he must have been really, really either driven by money, Oscar Schindler, or he was so clever that he I don't know, I just don't know how he did it. It's just amazing. It must have been money, because when at the very end, when he's got the diamonds and he gives them to the general and he says, you're going to need these after the war, it's up to you, what you want to do, there's no judgment. I mean, well, suppose desperate times, desperate measures.
I mean, the film was based on a book, they often are, Schindler's Ark, and I mean, he is without a doubt a hero to the Jewish people. Obviously, he wasn't a Jew, and we'll never know. We'll never. I mean, I think it's a novel, but it's kind of. It's an interesting examination, because he wasn't in the film and the book. He wasn't Schindler. Was it Oscar Schindler? He wasn't a nice man, was he?
No, he wasn't. No. Well,
and it's an interesting. Well, it's an interesting examination of how a businessman, and they're not all evil, I'm not making that supposition or allegation, but a businessman who sees his business being harmed and sees a way in which his business can be bettered and seeks to use that way, and then realises that these aren't just profit-earning units for him, but actually human beings, and starts to recognise that, and then starts to think almost, if not more, about the humanity of it all than about the profitability of it all, but simultaneously having to maintain the profitability to have the power to do the humanity. It's a wonderful muddled up triangle of faith.
There's some really poetic parts, like when he, near the end where he says we can have the Jewish Sabbath, and they get the candles out and they start doing the praying, and the guys, these generals, listening to them praying, and they're saying the prayer and whatever they say. And it's just, it just shows that they weren't very much liked anyway by either East or West, it says at the end. They think it was a Russian soldier that came to see them in the camp, the labourers. But, it just shows triumph over adversity. It's just a
hell of a film. Hell of a film, hell of a book.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan.
Good on you. It's worth reading the book, Schindler's Ark. It's even better than the film, although obviously not as easy. That was rude. It's a harder read than it is to watch the film. I think I'm trying to say. I'm still not saying it right. 0800 218 2255. I'll leave it at, if you've never seen Schindler's List, give it a go. If you've never read the book Schindler's Ark, give it a go. How do Eileen?
Hello. I just wanted to pick you up on something you said before. Do you remember St. Thomas More, and he wouldn't sign, and with Henry VIII, and his head got stuck on a stake because of that? Do you remember? Have you seen the film?
I've not seen the film. I think I know what you're referring to. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, St. Thomas More was a lawyer and a judge and a good friend and companion of Henry VIII. Do you remember? And they all had to sign this thing to do with, I think it was Anne Boleyn and the children, her offspring, basically. And he wouldn't sign. And by not signing meant he was remaining, not against it, but by remaining silent. It was meant that, he was just staying silent, which meant, he's staying out of it. And his friend says, just sign that damn thing, Thomas, sign it. He says, this isn't Spain. And he was dead 3 months after Thomas, actually. He'd signed it. And so Thomas wouldn't sign it. And the guy that set him up in the court, who lied in the court, actually was wearing this signature, this seal of office. And as Thomas gave up, because he said, I've been set up, and he knew that, this Richie Rich walks past, who died in his bed when he was 90, by the way. And basically he said, can I see that seal of office? And he looked at him and he said, what if a man lose his soul for the whole world? He said, but Rich, he said, for Wales, because it was the seal of office for Wales. And he'd sold his soul and lied against this man who knew he had done no wrong, and he was a lawyer and a judge by trade, but because of this perjury and lies by this Richie Rich, who had been, given the office to lie, because they had to put waylay. And that's what you see keeping silent and not going along with things does. This doctor who kept going on about this Letby, he was for 3 years kept aback, and they wouldn't follow through what he was reporting. 3 years, and he was a doctor. And I just want to say about someone I knew that went in to be, mayor in Liverpool. Do you remember when we was having the mayor? He went in to be mayor. And I know this guy. He's written a book and everything. It's called Spiders in the Bath, if you want to read it. But basically, he's very anti-corruption in the police. And his tenet of his flag to get this job as mayor was, keep all coppers off the jury. Now, I had issue with him, and when I was speaking to him, I said, Paul, you went in to be mayor. I said, and I know someone that voted for you, actually. I said, I didn't vote for you. I said, our jury is picked randomly. I said, and whether it's a copper or not, you can't say keep all coppers off the jury if they happen to come up in the jury. And he said, he said, that's not what it's about. He said what they're doing, the government and the authorities, is they're nobbling certain juries by putting in coppers in with the jury, 1 or 2, depending what the case is about, to push and make sure they get the verdict.
So from that, are you of the view that serving police officers shouldn't be on juries?
I don't think you should nobble any jury.
No, I didn't ask you. No, Eileen. The question was more specific than that. Of course, one shouldn't nobble a jury. In fact, it's a criminal offence to do so.
Well,
but to come back to no, you've told. No, you haven't. You've told me. Good night, Eileen. Good night. You can shout as loud as you. Goodbye, Eileen. 0800 218 2255. She told me what somebody standing for office thought about it. Never did tell me what she thought, but no matter. Perhaps she doesn't think. No idea. 0800 218 2255. If you wish to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say. Talk about anything, even if you're not barmy. Because I am, let's face it. In the morning, on Monday morning, the Daily Telegraph, I've got a photograph of 2 of the England team, 3 of the England team. It's only 5 legs, that's where I went wrong. If you see the photo, you know what I mean. Number 6, number 19 and number 23, I don't know who they are. Just looking, desperate, really, just looking sad, and understandably so. But they give it their best shot, and they give it a bloody good shot. I don't think they played as well as they have in previous games, but as I've said many times, I know absolutely nothing about football, so quite frankly, I'm not in a position to say. And that's not a criticism. Nobody is on song every single day, are they? Just not, well, apart from me then, but nobody is. Anyway, the Daily Telegraph got a photograph of 3 of the England players looking less than pleased with their lot, which is fine. And then, interestingly, the Liberal Conservatives put the Prime Minister under increasing pressure to fire the Home Secretary after repeated small boat failures. Stop the boats! Stop the boats! Now, some Tories are saying, never mind that, stop Braverman. The Daily Mirror, proud of you, defeat, but the Lionesses inspire a nation. And let us hope they continue to do so. Pride of the nation, says the Daily Express. And King brings Andrew in from the cold. The King has offered an olive branch to disgrace Prince Andrew by inviting him to Balmoral. There, you see, that's nice. He loves him after all. Surely does. 0800 218 2255. Lock up your daughters. We're so proud of you, says the Daily Star. You all did us proud, says the Metro, the Independent, the Ecstasy, the Agony. England thrill millions and save a penalty in their first World Cup final. The Agony. Heroic Lionesses lose 1-0 to Spain but win the hearts of a nation. The FT even give it a mention. The reign of Spain, England hopes dashed in the final. Beijing pushes for BRICS, BRICS expansion in an effort to create a stronger rival to G7. And Russia's first post-Soviet lunar mission crashes, leaving the programme in doubt. So they didn't get what they wanted, so they might not do it again. We shall have to wait and see, of course. 0800 218 2255. You want to join us, you can. It's getting on for, well, it's very nearly 11:30. We're here till 1 o'clock. And if you want to talk about something, you're welcome to. How do Anthony?
Oh, good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
Yeah, I was just ringing up. I've just had an idea about how to deal with river pollution, or just one idea, because I tend to use UHT skim milk for my tea, and I was thinking, well, can't they UHT, ultra high treat sewage, so it kills the bacteria and the germs before. It's still going to be mucky if you're going for a swim in a river or something, but at least you probably won't get some awful disease, which you would do off the germs and bacteria. What do you think? Is that a stupid idea, or is it something?
I don't know whether it's stupid or not. I can see the cost of it being extraordinarily high. I mean, imagine how much a pint of milk costs.
Companies make a lot of money.
Well, they do make a lot of money, but they'd make an awful lot less if they had to heat up all the water to a level that killed all the bacteria. But it's kind of neither here nor there, because the problem seems to be that they are allowing the water to run off untreated. We already have perfectly usable and serviceable treatments for sewage, and and so if that was all used properly for, you know, every turd, as it were, if that was all used properly, then our seas and our rivers wouldn't be polluted. The problem is that often, far too often, thousands of times a week it would seem, raw sewage is pumped into the water. So even if you had another treatment, it would be no good if it wasn't used. And the issue isn't that we don't have a viable and efficient treatment. The issue is that we don't always use the treatment that we have.
Yeah, there's probably something in there. But I mean, UHT power units could be partly powered by solar units. I don't know. It depends where they stick these things in the piping or whatever. And the cost of the units might be a bit expensive, but relatively, I just think, well, just get on with it.
The problem is that if you imagine the treatment works as a dirty, great big tank, enormous, but let's just say the size of a swimming pool. It's much, much bigger than that, but the size of a swimming pool. When there is more water flowing down the drains than it can cope with, then what they do, rather than, I don't know what they could do instead, but the swimming pool gets full, the rest of the sewage has to go somewhere.
Yep.
What it does is it goes down a pipe into the river. So that's what happens. So what they need is bigger swimming pools or more swimming pools, using that awful description. So,
I'm not going to
the problem isn't
pool in the whole.
Yeah, it's all in the swimming pools. It isn't that they don't have the ability to treat the sewage. It's and another unfortunate pun, they frequently can't be asked to treat the sewage because there's too much of it, and they don't want to spend any of their massive profits in getting more treatment services.
Yeah,
that's the gist of
something that should have been should have never been privatised in the first place. But that's another issue.
Well, that also would address the question of why haven't we got enough reservoirs for the water? We've got one of the rainiest climates, and yet we frequently have droughts. And you think, why? It's piddling it down halfway through summer. Why have we got a drought? Well, we haven't this year, but many years we do. And again, it's because there isn't enough.
No, we did have one. Well, certainly in the North Wirral, you had one briefly. You couldn't water the garden. Well, you asked not to water your garden.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, we have that big, please conserve water, but from time to time we say don't use any water other than to drink almost. So that's because we don't have enough water storage and treatment, because they won't spend capital resources to create it. Because if they do, it'll come off their profit, and they're there to make profit. They're a company.
Exactly. A privatised company, they form of capitalism, and that's what they're there for, fundamentally.
They're there for profit. They're not companies are there for profit. And the reason governments privatise it is because it gets it off their books. In other words, everybody's slagging off the water companies for not spending enough money. But if it was still nationalised, then they'd be slagging off the government. So you'd be saying, I'm not voting for you because I'm still swimming in raw sewage, thank you very much. So get it sorted,
Yeah, well,
you don't get the votes.
It's probably a very good thing with today's government. They've got very little to criticise about them. So I can see why, since Mrs. Thatcher, etc., they wanted to privatise these things. Because, I don't think people are going to vote for them for what they've been doing anyway the last, what was it now? They've been in power 43 years. I don't know if you count Tony Blair as a Conservative, but kind of.
Well, you don't if you're filling in a ballot paper, because he wasn't.
He wasn't technically. But
well, that's a matter of opinion. But his party was Labour, not Conservative. Whether you think he was a Tory in a red tie, that's New Labour, but Labour nonetheless. Got a new car. It's not a bus, is it? It's still a car. You know, got a new washing machine. It must be a tumble dryer.
I'm still looking for Clause 4 to come back from the, when I was a student in the late 80s, when I joined the Labour Party then, as a student, you had Clause 4 on the back of your card, little 4-page card.
And what was Clause 4?
Oh, it's basically, each person to, keep what they earn, and make an honest living, more or less. I can't remember it. It's 30 years ago.
Right.
But it's something like that, if you do a hard day's work, you get the requisite pay for your labour. But, anyway, thanks, Mr. Blair, for that. That was really not appreciated. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Okay.
Have a good night then. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, feel free. Pick up your telephone and have your say. Clause 4, by the way, was the commitment, the Labour Party's commitment to nationalisation. And that was Clause 4, if you were wondering. Clause 4 of the Labour Party constitution. How do Jessica?
Hello. It's just what you're saying about treatment in rivers. You don't actually swim in rivers, you just go through the motions. Good night, Alan.
Thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. Well, I wish not to steal her thunder, but I heard that joke on the radio the other day, and it made me chuckle. Then it really is a good joke. 0800 218 2255. You might say it made...
BBC
government minister, not a vicar or a priest or some other holy fella. A minister said this week that a boycott on marking university papers was hurting people. He's probably right. A minister, a different one, said this week that the train disputes were hurting people. Probably right. A minister said this week that the strikes in the health service were hurting people, even possibly killing people. Might be right. It would seem that a lot of people are being hurt by workers, which may be so. But when you look at those sort of statements, minister said this, minister said this, minister said this, there's only one constant in all those disputes. Someone like minister might wonder if there's a minister, possibly a prime minister, who can see what the universal strand is. So there are all these people on strike, and there are consequences. People in that job on strike, there are consequences. People in that job on strike, there are consequences. And at the head of each of those industries, there's a minister, a government minister, paid in excess of £100,000 a year to get those services to work. And they're not doing. But as the ministers keep saying, it's the workers' fault. Who do you believe? Who do you blame? All these strikes that we're having at the moment, they really are a pain. They really are. NHS waiting lists are growing because there aren't the staff to do them. And yes, the doctors in Scotland have accepted a deal and the like. But you know, there are still disputes. We've got more rail strikes coming on that interferes with people's travel plans and puts more people on the roads, which clogs up the roads and, you know, is environmentally unsound and all of that. All the strikes all over the place. Who do you blame? Do you blame the worker? Do you blame the employer? Or do you blame the person at the top of the pile, the government minister, who has the power to solve it? Who do you blame? 0800 218 2255. You know, that song there, My Name is Luca, I Live on the Second Floor, and all the rest of it. I know, it's clever. I'm not saying the song's clever, but it's clever how they... songwriters, poets. Do you remember? We've all done it, haven't we? We've all made up a poem at some point. I remember as a kid, long time ago. I was in infant school, and we were told to write a poem. And I wrote, "I like to go a-skiing down the mountainside. Going up is very slow, but coming down I glide." Now I don't know whether that's good or bad. It's childish. That's for sure. And I must have been about 7 or 8 when I wrote that. I've not written many since. But people who write poems, they have a lot of time. Their sort of process can take as long as it like, as indeed it can with songwriters. But songwriters, in the end, it has to fit into a sort of musical format, doesn't it? You know, my name is Luca, or whatever, and it has to be musically catchy. It's very, very clever, and particularly narrative. I think that one that Suzanne Vega was just singing, I think that was a narrative song. You know, it had a little story in it rather than just an expression of emotions, which most poems and songs are. I just find it fascinating. It's a hell of a skill, hell of a talent to be able to do it, and to do it in a way that people think, well, I'll go out and buy that. I mean, one of the reasons I'm a fan, if that's the right word, of Leonard Cohen is he actually writes poetry which has music rather than songs that work as poems. Yeah, right, I'm talking gibberish now, but there's no new in that. How do Ted?
All right, Alan, just to say, the Earth is blue. It's number 3 from the sun. Neptune. Uranus is number 7 from the sun. That's blue. Neptune is 8 from the sun. That's blue. Goldilocks and the 3 bears, Alan.
I was okay till we got to Goldilocks. I didn't quite get that bit.
The 3 bears.
Well, Goldilocks and the 3 bears. So are you saying that those 3 planets you mentioned... Sorry, go on. It's
scientists and that say the Goldilocks is a thing, like, don't they? When you see a planet and that. Or the sun.
I'm not aware of scientists referring to suns or stars or planets as Goldilocks, I must admit, but weird.
Funny, like, and on there's clouds on Uranus and Neptune, are like clouds, white clouds, but we've never been underneath it, the 2 of them.
But they're not clouds like our clouds, are they? I believe that they're chemical clouds rather than moisture clouds.
We don't know what's there on underneath, because when you look from space at Earth, you can't see the houses or the buildings, can you?
Well, I don't know whether there are houses or buildings, but the clouds you refer to are chemical clouds, or clouds of chemical gas rather than water vapour, such as our clouds.
That's what they've told us, that when they've said that to us, secret society and all that, innit?
Right, okay, well, it may well be a secret society, but it's not quite secret enough. Otherwise, we wouldn't be asking these questions. But your suggestion seems to be that the clouds on Uranus are there. There's a joke in there somewhere, but the clouds on Uranus...
Why haven't they been down there? Why haven't they been down there? Why haven't they been down on the land?
It's quite a long way.
It's not that long. It's not as far as Mars, is it?
I don't know which is furthest, to be honest.
Mars is further than Neptune and Uranus.
Is it? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Thanks, kid.
My pleasure. I don't know which is furthest and nearest. I really don't. Perhaps I should. Perhaps I should know. Perhaps these are the kind of things that I ought to be studying, because I have so many gaps in my knowledge. Everybody does, I know, but I get quite annoyed with myself when I don't know things. I feel as if I should know them, but I don't. So there we are. So I mean, they do those things, don't they? They do those models. They've got a special name for them. Again, something I don't know, but they have a special name for them. And yeah, I don't know. But I'm just looking now. There are 8 planets, it would seem, in our solar system. I presume that's including us, but I can't be entirely sure. Yeah. So what's the order from the sun? When I say from the sun, I don't mean like a command. I mean, what is the order starting at the sun? I'm aware that we're the third. I know we're the third planet, but beyond that, I've not got much knowledge, really. I've never got into it. It's always seemed something I don't need to know. I'm never going to go to any of them places, so I'm not really sure. Do you know? What's the order of the planets? If you know, tell me, put me out of my misery. Why on another? 0800 218 2255 and tell me what they are. So I can then, I'm trying to look it up now. Oh, here we go. So we've got, right. I thought I heard it then, it's disappeared. Never mind. Yeah. So, oh dear God. So we've got Mercury. Yeah. Apparently that's made of rocky material, we think. Surfaces are solid. It's not got many moons. Doesn't have any rings. I know that feeling. Find out beyond that, I really don't know. Yeah, the solar system in order. Here we go. So we've got Mercury. That's the nearest to the sun. Mercury, I think. Yeah. And then Venus, with or without blue jeans, I don't know. And then Earth. And then Mars is next. I thought it was, and I didn't say. Then Jupiter. Then Saturn. And then the schoolboy's favourite, Uranus. And then Neptune. That's the planets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 planets. Right. So I do know now. I'll have to come up with a mnemonic that will help me to remember those. How do Simon?
Hello, Alan. I'm an old person, and do you remember a series called Catweazle?
I remember it. I never watched it, but I do remember it, yes.
Oh, didn't you? It was about a Norman guy who, I think he was being chased in first episode by his contemporaries, or soldiers, sorry, and then he jumped into a lake in his Norman world, and then he emerged in the 20th century it would have been then, because it was 1970, I think. And he found, things like electricity, and I think it was aeroplanes and all the modern technology then, overwhelming. And he befriended a young guy called Carrot, who had red hair. That's why he was called Carrot. He was played by, I think it was Robin Davis, I think was the actor who played him, who was in And Mother Makes 3 with Wendy Craig. Do you remember that one?
Ooh, not sure. I think I do. Anyway, go on anyway. So Catweazle,
Yeah, so his set phrase was "nothing works," and the young Carrot is the lad who befriended him in a barn. It was on a farm, and then they later lived in I think it was a water tower somewhere in the countryside near the farm, and he had a little den in there, and he had a pet toad called Touchwood. That was it. Anyway, his stock phrase was "nothing works." And it's the same today, isn't it? If nothing works, you switch it off and you switch it back on again. Like the gas in your electricity.
That is what these guys they send whenever your computer breaks down, and your phone up and say, "Look, my computer's not with it. Have you tried switching it off and switching it back on again?"
And it bloody doesn't work, doesn't it?
It resolves it, yeah. I know, when it comes back on, it thinks, I better get myself sorted.
I'm retired now, but when I used to work, all these computer whiz kids would always do upgrades over weekends, and you come in first thing Monday morning and nothing works.
Oh, yeah.
And then you switch everything off, and then you switch it back on again, and if you're lucky, it did work, you know?
It's weird. We live in a very strange age, and honestly, I have never really got to grips with computer technology. I don't grasp how it works.
You were saying you chastise yourself sometimes for having lack of knowledge, but one thing about these Wikipedias and things, at least it bridges some of the gaps, but is Wikipedia right? Because anybody can write on that. Well,
that's the trouble, isn't it? Anyone can write on it, yeah, but I mean, Wikipedia is not reliable. So somebody sent me actually a relative, somebody sent me my Wikipedia entry, and it's kind of, well, it may be different now, it's kind of right.
Mainly right.
Well, that's it in a nutshell. It's mainly right. I've not read it since. I don't know what to do with it, because I know people, colleagues. I don't mean.
Since you worked at Citizens Advice Bureau, and you did all that because you mentioned that on the programme, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's a couple of years ago now, maybe longer. But he sent it to me. He said, he was elsewhere. He lives abroad, and so he was quite surprised.
Yeah.
And he sent it to me. Right. I don't mean. He didn't mail it to me. He sent me a link. And anyway, and I read it, and I thought, it's near enough right. It doesn't matter anyway.
If it's wrong, you could edit it yourself and put it right, I suppose, couldn't you?
Yeah, can't be doing that. Oh dear, no.
Oh God, no. Well, I'm not in there. I'm not as famous. I was on your programme. You're going to love this one. I was on your when you worked for Southern Network in 1981. I was on your big blue cassette. Do you remember that?
I remember it. Yeah. Yes,
I've been talking to you on radio for 42 years, off and on.
Good Lord. That's
incredible.
More scary than I want it to be.
I was a mere stripling, left university when I first, and I was absolutely terrified of you. I was sat in porch, shivering to death, creeping downstairs to ring you.
Oh yeah, because of course you did then, didn't you?
The phone. Yeah, and I was on a proper phone in those days, and a landline, and my parents were in bed, and I crept downstairs, and it was bloody freezing cold, and I thought, oh God, we'll give Beswick a ring. And when they got phone bill, they went through, who have you been ringing in Preston?
Yeah. Well, it was commercial radio. We didn't the BBC. We ring everybody back. That's the policy.
Well, I need to know 800 number, so it's free anyway, isn't it? But in those days,
it is now. Yes.
01772 was it? Or 772?
Don't ask me. Come on, you've just said it was 40 years ago. I don't remember bloody phone numbers from 40 years ago.
All right.
I only remember my name because I've still got the same one. Yeah, it was in Preston. Good on you, Simon.
97.3 then, and then you moved to 97.4, didn't you? Do you remember that? I've got a sticker somewhere. In fact, do you remember you used to do a Sunday morning quiz show, a live one?
Yeah.
I've still got the mug you gave me when I won your competition. Isn't that amazing? And it's still here in the kitchen.
Good Lord. Well, I haven't got one, so I'll send it back. Yeah.
It was 301.
Yeah, that was the kind of prize. We used to lash out on things like prizes, you know, a mug.
Yeah.
Signed photograph. That was a prize, dear God. Good on you, Simon. Good to talk to you, mate. 0800 218 2255. We used to do a quiz programme. It wasn't really a quiz, it was a general knowledge thing, buggering about on a Sunday morning. And it was called It's Your Turn. The reason it was called It's Your Turn was because it was based on a roulette wheel. And when we religionsly come up with the idea, Mike Green, my then producer at Red Rose Radio Night, came up with this this idea. We'd been sent to do a recording at a health club that had just opened halfway between Preston and Lancaster. We went and did the interview, and on the way back, we'd been told by the boss that he wanted a quiz show off us. So we tried to come up with an idea, and we came up with an idea based on bingo. And we submitted it to the boss, and he said the commercial radio was governed by something called the IBA, the Independent Broadcasting Authority. And he said, that won't get past the IBA. And we said, why? He said, because it's bingo, it's gambling. And we said, well, they're not paying anything. You know, it's just a phone call. They're not paying anything. You know, no, they won't wear it. And he was right. We sent it in, and they came back, and they said no. So we then said, right, well, we changed the game slightly, and instead of having random numbers like bingo, we said we've got this random numerator that we use, you know, like the premium bonds. And he said, what is it? So you don't need to know what it is. It's just a random numerator. And you can hear it doing its work. You know, it's got a clickety sound, click, 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 click. Well, let me hear it. So we went away and we made a recording. All right, he said, we'll have that. And he said, do they pay anything? No, they don't pay anything. He said, all right, we'll send it off. And it come back, random numerator. The random numerator was a roulette wheel. So we couldn't have bingo because it was gambling, but we could have a roulette wheel. Anyway, there you are. And it did all right. We took it to theatres and all sorts. We did it at the Grand Theatre. I know, in Blackpool. It wasn't a big success. But we used to take it to garden fetes and things like that. Bloody hell, it must have been balmy. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, you can. I'll do Jessica.
Hello, I've got a mnemonic for remembering the order of the planets.
Oh, go on.
Well, it did work until they demoted Pluto to a dwarf planet. There it goes. My very easy method. That's the 4 rock planets. Just set up 9 planets.
My very easy. So Mercury, Uranus, Earth, Mars. Very easy method. Just set up Jupiter, 9, Neptune, planets, Pluto. Wow. Right. That's
Where's old owl of the tribe?
Well, I still remember the colours of the rainbow because our
Richard of York.
Oh no, that's the other one. But we did read over your good books in verse.
Yeah, and then there's that one. Never eat shredded wheat with 4 compass points. Well, what's the point of learning that if you don't remember north, south, east, and west? Just give up and go home.
And there is that, yeah. But then there's all the other compass points, aren't there? What is it? North, east, northeast, northeast, northeast. No, it's north, northeast, northeast, east, northeast, and on it goes right the way round.
Over there, back round yonder, and back over that way.
That works as well, yeah. Good on you, Jessica. Thank you very much. How do Sean?
Hello, Alan. How you doing?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, before when I said about what I do now, yeah, I'm sorry that I have to tell you that.
It's okay.
Can I ask you something? What does the word cresting mean?
Well, it depends on which meaning you go for. There is a clinical definition. It's an illness, if you like, an affliction, and that's one thing. The other one is it just means crackers.
Yeah. It's because you called me before because of what I said about I was doing an Aldi before.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a bit cresting for what I did an Aldi, because who goes around doing that in Aldi? It's embarrassing.
Well, it's not embarrassing. It's illegal and stupid.
I'm lucky no one reported me to the police, and I got away with it basically because no one's reported it.
Or at least you don't think they did.
Pardon?
Or at least you don't think they did. Anyway, good to talk to you, even though you admit that you are exactly that. 0800 218 2255. If you wish to join us, you can. How big are your hands? I've got quite small hands, really. Not as small as Donald Trump's, obviously. Nobody's as small as that. Even a baby's are bigger than his. But I've got quite small ones, so I could hold a cup and saucer, which would be all right. I mean, get it on. That's fine. Get it on. Try saying get them off, see how you go. 0800 218 2255. How do Cliff?
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Awfully well, thank you.
Good. You were just speaking about poetry before there.
I was.
And yes, and when it came to Northern Ireland's centenary, they had a competition for to enter a poem about Northern Ireland, and I sat down and wrote one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got an email to say that I'd ended up winning the bloody competition, and I got 500.
Oh, that's all right. 500 quid.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all right. I never got that for my skiing poem.
So and don't ask me to recite it because I can't even remember.
How long ago was that?
Much of it. Oh, just for the centenary. So 2021, 100 years.
All right. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I know. Yeah, that was yeah. I'd never sat down and wrote a poem before, and as you say, it's amazing what you can come up with if you put the time into it.
It is extraordinary. It's quite satisfying, isn't it? I've not written many. I'm not a poet by any means, but I've had a go at a few. You know, the things that have happened, if you like, in your life, and you think, I write about that because I do a little bit of journal keeping, and occasionally you'll write a poem and you think, wow, yeah.
I've written a couple of songs, but never did anything with them. But I didn't think they were half bad. But it's hard to get things moving as music wise, isn't it? You know, you need, if you get in with the right company, and I think it's a case of more of who you know than what you know. But
oh, you mean in getting your work out there, as it
recorded
were?
Recorded and somebody taking a song, somebody to take a song, so that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
but even if you get it out there, the publisher gets a big chunk of the money anyway, don't they? You know, the writer gets a chunk and the publisher gets a chunk. And I suppose they should. I mean, without the publisher, nobody's going to read it or hear it or anything, are they? But it's like an artist when they do a painting and they sell it for 100 quid or 500 quid or whatever. The agent doing the selling gets as much as half. And all they're doing is hanging it on the wall.
That's good commission, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and of course he comes back and say, well, if you don't get it hung in the gallery, then you ain't going to sell it. So he's entitled to that chunk, but it must be disappointing, that. But there you go, you won you got 500 quid.
Yeah, what kind of commission then would, with the likes of this new Freddy Mercury sale that's coming up where his friend is selling all shapes and forms of memorabilia and items belonging to Freddie Mercury. What kind of money would the auction house be taking on that?
Well, the auction houses take different amounts, different auction houses. The bigger they are, the bigger the chunk they take. But 15% is fairly common, plus VAT, of course. 25% is not unheard of. And in some cases, a lot more. But a substantial chunk But
did you see the range
without the auction
did you
house?
see the range of stuff from Freddie Mercury?
Oh,
Did you
it's
see
amazing.
the range of stuff?
Oh, it's just extraordinary. I mean, he
Absolutely.
collected all sorts of things, didn't he? Just stuff that you just wonder what they say in it is. Who was it now?
Yeah.
I knew a woman who, she and her husband used to collect Bakelite. You know, that very hard plastic from the 60s?
Yes.
And they used to collect Bakelite, and they had all sorts made out of Bakelite. And just one day, they both kind of woke up and thought, what are we doing with all this? It's junk. They basically just turfed it. And they'd spent years collecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get people who collect cigarette cards, it used to be years ago, didn't it? And you say, what? Why are you doing?
Yes.
Collecting beer mats? What?
Yes.
But if you've got the collecting bug, you'll collect anything. If you haven't got it, then you're kind of stuffed, aren't you? You don't do it. The only thing I'm interested in collecting now, pictures of Her Majesty the Queen. But only on little rectangles of paper.
Yes. While they're still around.
While they're still around.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, do you remember when the pound coin came out?
Yes.
I was working at Red Rose Radio at the time, and we did. You know what a vox pop is when you go out with a microphone and you talk to people in the street. And we thought, again, my producer Mike Green came up with the idea, and we went out in the street with a bag of £1 coins, and we said to the people, "Have you got a pound note?" And they said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, look, we've got this bag of £1 coins here, and we've got some 20p coins. I will give you a £1 coin and a 20p coin for your £1 note." And they said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I think they'll be collector's items, so I'm going around Preston getting as many as I can. And I think in years to come they'll be worth a lot of money, so I'll give you £1.20 for your pound note." And the number of people who turned me down was unbelievable.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And my favourite one, and we finished the report on it at the end, and this woman said, "Aye, all right then. And we gave her the £1.20 and took the pound coin off her, and she turned around to walk away, and she turned back and she said, "Are you from Mars?" She thought we were absolutely crackers. She's probably right.
Yeah.
There you are. It cost us a fortune in 20p's. Right. Good to talk to you, Cliff. And I'm glad you won 500 quid for a poem, because I haven't got sod all for any of mine. Have a good night, mate. 0800 218 2255. 500 quid for a poem. I know. But people do, don't they? You see them in the papers every day. Every day. Paper, they have them. And then it's just... Have you heard that programme on... It's an interview programme, and it's the poet laureate has gone to his shed. Apparently the Simon Armitage, the poet, is he still? I don't know if they got the new one yet, but anyway, Simon Armitage, the poet laureate, he works in a shed at the bottom of his garden when he's writing his poems. He did an interview series for Radio 4, and it was called The Poet Laureate Has Got to His Shed. Very strange. 0800 218 2255. 25 past midnight. We're here till 1. It's very, very quiet, so if you want to join us, you ain't in a queue. 0800 218 2255. In other words, it's up. Well, retired, I suppose, is perhaps a more gentle way of saying it, but when they stopped performing together anyway, and they attempted their own careers, and Gary Barlow wasn't the big star, was he? He struggled. I mean, it was the other fella, but he did now, and he had a terrible time, and he was very slow, and then he suddenly got back together with himself and started writing and all the rest of it and performing, and then they all got back together. I think it was that lad from Warrington that got them back together, who owns Warrington Rugby Club, and got them on tour again, and they became absolutely enormous, bigger than they were before. Careers are strange. How did Peter?
Robbie Williams. He was the main guy, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was the one when he left. But he left before they broke up. I think. Well,
he did. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a go at them because they had one of their biggest hits. Was it "Back for Good"?
And I think he performed.
That was the one they came back with, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he was in the video, but he slags that song off, doesn't he? And I think him and Gary had a bit of a row after that. But they
did. Yeah, they weren't very friendly for a while.
No.
But they've been on tour together since, haven't they? You know.
Absolutely. I'm reading about Simon Armitage. You mentioned him earlier.
Oh yeah.
And I think he's wonderful. He did a program. He did a one-man stand-up at the Lowry, and I actually met him a few years ago. Yes. Yeah. There was a program on Radio 4 called Poetry Please, and he was a special guest on a live production of that.
Right.
Who presented that? It wasn't Roger McGough, was it?
It was, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Roger McGough.
Yeah. But he also wrote a novel called All Points North, sorry. Have you read that?
No.
No,
I'm not a great reader of novels.
Well, it's a very easy book to read. He talks about when parts of Saddleworth used to be in Yorkshire, and they've moved the boundaries since, haven't they?
Yeah, they moved it a couple of times.
I think Saddleworth's now in Greater Manchester, isn't it? It's part of Oldham Met Borough, and Upper Mill and all those Dobcross, Diggle, Delph and Denshaw, they're all in Greater Manchester now. Whereas
I think they are,
before 1974, I think they were all in Yorkshire. And he's talking about the Yorkshire border, and he goes on about the M62, when it was a pea super, and they could see a sign lit up, and they actually pulled up into the hard shoulder to read the sign, and when they walked up to it, it said, fog. That was brilliant. And he talks about going for a curry in Bridlington as well. That was very funny. And like they have these books in some of these restaurants. How good was the food? And somebody had written "very fantastic" in the book, and I thought that was fantastic. Very fantastic.
Yeah, that's what you call good, isn't it?
It is.
Dirty me.
But he is the Port Laureate, and I love that programme you were talking about the shed. But when Prince Charles, as he was then, he wouldn't go to the shed. Simon had to go and visit him at Highgrove House or wherever he lives, or Wales maybe. But
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
How big's the shed? Not palatial, I guess.
but his style of interview is fascinating.
It is.
It's very. It's not like a normal interview, it's more of a chat, more of two persons.
And he teases a lot out of people because of that, doesn't he? Like this week we lost dear old Michael Parkinson, and I'd say he had the same gift. There's been no one like Parkinson, has there, since him?
No. But I mean the thing about Parky, it was all. I mean, Parky's work, it was taddy. It was, a lot of it was rehearsed.
Yes.
So. But it's not the worst for that. It's still brilliant.
But he got some really funny stories out of nearly all his guests. Your Billy Connolly's, your Peter Kay's, your,
he made Connolly. he made Connolly a star, didn't he?
Yes.
And Peter Kay, he knew quite well because Peter Kay, believe it or not, used to be the warm-up man on Parky.
Did he really?
Yeah,
and who was Peter Kay's warm-up man?
Oh God, I don't know.
That was the guy who had a bit of a heart attack on stage, didn't he?
I've no idea. I don't even know what you mean in that respect. Don't know.
But he used to do the warm-up for Mastermind when I used to go to Granada, even though it was a BBC production.
Oh, then I know what you mean. Paul McCartney's cousin.
Yes.
I've forgotten his name. Yeah.
I've forgotten his name. Tim Robbins?
Yeah, Tim Robbins. Yeah.
Tim Robbins, that's it.
Yeah.
And he had a heart attack at one of Peter Kay's concerts.
He did.
Somebody in the front row.
Ted Robbins.
Ted Robbins.
Ted Robbins.
Ted Robbins.
Yeah, and his sister, of course.
Between us.
His sister's a impersonator, as they call him, isn't she?
Yes, I think she is. But there was, luckily for Ted Robbins, somebody at Peter Kay's concert in the front row had swapped places, and he was a doctor, or she was a doctor, and ran on the stage and saved him. So he might well not be with us had it not been for that. But there
that's quite possible. He's a good bloke, is Ted. I met Ted a lot.
He's so funny, actually. As I say, he was a warm-up guy for Mastermind, and he had us all in stitches.
He's hilarious, and that's a really difficult thing to do.
Oh, it is.
I tried it. I was asked to do warm up for question. No, not comedy warm up, but warm up for question time. When it was in the north. Well, originally it was when it was in Manchester. I did a few in Manchester, then a couple in the Liverpool area.
Was it permanently in the north then?
No. It was when they were on tour. If they came up this end, I did the warm up, but it wasn't a comedy warm up. It was trying to get the audience to engage. And I did one in Newcastle, and I never did one after that because I was bloody awful. I couldn't get anything out of it.
How can you be bloody awful, Alan?
Everybody can be. Absolutely awful.
Who was the presenter of Question Time then?
It was David Dimbleby,
yeah. Because there was Robin Day before him, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I'm not that bloody old, thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. I remember him, but I didn't work at the same time as him.
Yeah, but you're 10 years older than me. So if I can remember him, you should be able to. Anyway, David...
I do remember him, but I was never his bloody warm-up man. I'm not that old. Well, thank you very much, Peter. I'll do Sam.
Hi, Alan. Did you watch...
Sam.
Hiya. Did you watch Planet Earth on BBC?
Do you mean tonight?
No, I mean, you said you watched yesterday. You said you watched it. Was it good?
I've watched Earth. Planet Earth was a different program, I think. There's a program called Earth that I've watched 2 of. I think there are more. But
Planet Earth. Yeah. Did you? So you thought it was? I thought it was brilliant, but I think I didn't like the time lapse, because you keep going back and forward in time for different episodes, and it was a bit confusing. But overall, I thought it was really good.
Right. We might be confusing things here. I thought the program I've been watching, I think it was just called Earth.
Yeah, it was
it was called.
Yeah, it was Earth. Yeah,
Sorry?
Yeah, the new one. Fairly new. Yeah. So so the time, every episode, the time. So it was going back and forward. But I mean, I did watch it. I watched all of it, but I don't remember the episodes. But I do remember it was keep going back and forward with the times of the different events and different stuff. In my case, if he explained everything that happened at one time, and then everything else that happened at one time, and then everything else that happened at one time. But I thought it was a brilliant program. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Well, I've only seen 2 of them so far. I believe there've been 3, but I've seen 2. I presumably got the other one on my telly waiting to be watched. But yeah, it's been good. Yeah. Been very good.
The last one is good. The last one?
The last one?
It's on. Yeah, the last episode is about humans. The last episode.
Yeah, I thought they got to humans eventually. It's kind of not much point doing it if you don't, really, is there? But good to talk to you. Thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, that's good. Pick up your phone. Have your say on whatever you feel like saying it on, really. We're not fussed. But yeah, Earth, if you've not seen it, it is very, very good. How do Paul?
Hi there, Alan. I've been listening to you for quite a few years. I think I remember once you saying that you used to play drums.
Long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, well, what it is, I'm 61 now, and I started playing drums about 7 years ago, sort of quite late, really. I've no natural rhythm. I can't dance, but it's an absolute real passion. And I take a lesson every couple of weeks. I've got a lovely kit. And what I do, I just put on my headphones, play along to songs on YouTube, especially Rolling Stones, which I love. I kind of love the way Charlie Watts sort of plays. Very laid back.
Stunning drummer. Stunning.
Yeah, he's underrated. Well, he is kind of rated by real sort of drummers who kind of know, but yeah, it's sort of sense of timing where he used to swing notes as well and lay back on it. So what I'm ringing at, Alan, is wanting to know if you've got any sort of tips you could give me at all. Anything, really.
Regrettably, Paul, I was crap at it.
Right.
Seriously. I was only 14 and I was awful at it, and I only did it for a very short time because the band I was in were rubbish. Most of them were, and we were one of the rubbish ones. I suppose we must have done 10 youth clubs. That was about it, really, and a couple of cafes. That's where you performed in those days if you were no good. And you know, we were just really bad at it. And we had some trouble setting up at one point, because in those days you'd go to a youth club on a Saturday night and there'd be 4 groups, we called them then, not bands. There'd be 4 groups on and you'd be swapping your gear off, you know. So they'd have people dancing while you were playing, and then you'd go off and another band would come on. It takes about 20 minutes to set up and all that caper. And we had some trouble setting up, so I just started talking and telling a few jokes and stories and things like that, and eventually I thought, oh, sod this for life, I'm just going to carry on talking.
But, so you're only young, and so you were sort of talking then?
Schoolboy. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Did you have lessons? Did you have?
No, I just bought a kit for about 15 quid, which was a lot of money. I bought a kit with my window cleaning money, and bought a very basic kit, you know, hi-hat, snare, and a tom-tom or 2, you know, that was it. I never really got into it enough to take over, but, you know, we did a lot. I used to sing Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, I've actually tried playing that. Do you ever play now? Because you can get like electric kits, really good.
No, I don't. No,
you have these mesh heads now. So.
No, I have no musical knowledge whatsoever. I bought a keyboard years ago, piano keyboard, and thought I'll give that a go, and I ended up wanting to throw it out the window.
Well, I think a keyboard, what I can sort of gather, is a lot harder than maybe playing drums.
Well, everything's harder than playing drums. You can get away on the drums, can't you? As long as you've got a... It depends what you're doing, but as long as if you've got a steady beat, then you're doing your job, you know. I don't think I even had that.
Because that's why I ask people, because I also drive a cab, and if ever I pick up anybody in the band, I always go on about drumming, and they tell me, look, if you can keep the beat, that is the main thing. That is what band members want. They don't really care about your fancy fills.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep the beat, you know.
They just want to know the tempo for the music.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what is that? What's that old joke? What do you call a drummer? Oh, that was it. No, it's the other way around. I've done the punchline. What do you call a bloke who hangs about with musicians? A drummer.
Yeah. Drummer. Yeah. Well,
I'm no help to you, I'm afraid, but you know, it's a very elite club, the Drummers Club. I mean, I used to tell the tale that I used to go to the youth club and see that the musicians got off with all the girls, and so I thought, well, that'll work for me. So I spent my 15 quid and I got my Premier set, and I discovered that the drummer doesn't get off with all the girls, because the guitarist get off with all the girls while the drummer's putting his bloody drums in them boxes. So by the time you've got them all in the van, you're too knackered anyway. Well, that's all they do is stand about singing and waving one arm against a load of strings. No tiredness in that. Well, good on you, Paul. Keep it up, though. Keep it up, because honestly, I wish I'd been required by my parents or my school or whatever to learn an instrument, because you can learn them much easier as a kid. And I suppose if I had any regrets in life, it's that I can't play a musical instrument. I've even got a ukulele somewhere, but now our great nephews and nieces come along and bang it against the wall. It seems to work for it. Have a good night. How do, David?
Hi, Alan. I was listening earlier to your conversation with the caller about poetry, and I was fascinated by that. And I used to write a lot. I've lost them with moving house things just as well. I did. It was sort of rubbish, really. But I used to go to these open mic nights, you know. I'd do sort of variety. Usually get a 5-minute slot, you know, and a little mix of some of the, you know, bit sort of morose, shall we say, a bit heavy, and a bit of humour. But the thing was, depending on where you went, the people in there, some of it was well received, and other times a bit of sort of deathly hush, you know. You just couldn't wait to get off.
It's just weird, isn't it? It's weird.
It is, and
There was a spell, wasn't there, in the possibly the 80s, maybe a little later than that, when performance poetry was big. I remember Henry Normal, you know, the Manchester gang, as it were. There was Henry Normal, who was a brilliant poet, absolutely brilliant. And Lem Cisse, of course. Lem Cisse, I used to know Lem quite well. And they were just geniuses, absolute geniuses.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, you know, before and after I'd done my sort of bit, you'd sit and listen, and there was some really amazing, you know, performers. You know, just absolutely brilliant. But you could never put your finger quite on how it could be. You know, there's many, many different reasons, I suppose, how you could take the same set of poems and read them as close as you did, you know, the week before somewhere else. And as I say, get this different kind of reception, as I say, you know.
But that's gigging. That's gigging.
Is. I mean, it is, and then,
whatever you're in, you can, you know, you can turn out, and you know, I did a sort of mini stage show, and in that I would tell tales, stories. You know, me gobby little get that I am, and I would tell tales and stories, and you tell a story that you know is a banker. You know, you've told it all over the damn place, and it's always gone down well. And you tell it, and you're looking at these people who are looking back at you thinking, I hope he stops this soon, because it's bloody dreadful. And you know, and you can't stop it, because it's, you know, it's like falling off a building. You don't stop till you're at the bottom. And you've just got to keep going, and you're thinking, I remember doing a gig, and it was a theatre. This is years ago now, and it was a theatre, and there's about 150 people in this theatre. It was full. It's only little. And there were 2 women on the front row. I'm not having a go at them. There were 2 women on the front row, and I started doing my patter, and you know, it was going all right. And most of the 150 people seemed to be enjoying it. You can never be sure, but they were patronising me enough to laugh. And these 2 women, they never ever smiled, let alone laugh. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you start thinking, I'm going to make them buggers laugh. And you start steering the whole thing. And you just do. Maybe it's just me, but... And you start working your material to these 2 women. And everybody else is enjoying it. They don't know they're being left out. You're really just trying to get these 2 bloody women to laugh. And that was that. And I finished it, you know, and all of that. And second half, they came back. So I thought, well, at least they won't be there in the second half. They're not enjoying it. And there they were. Again. And I just thought, sod it. And then I was coming out and getting in my car, and they were waiting for me. And I thought, they're going to kill me. And I said, hello. They said, hello. Thank you very much. We've had a lovely evening. You're very funny.
Amazing, isn't it?
And I thought, I want to kill you now. That's audiences. And I've been in audiences, and I've been that person, you know.
Absolutely.
It's weird. Weird.
It is.
Performance
you know,
poetry.
I haven't done that for some time, and I've sort of, shall I not, you know, but I don't know.
Do it. What's the worst that can happen?
Go for it.
Do it.
Why not?
Do it. The worst that can happen is you die on your arse. But you're going to die sometime proper, and it won't be as bad. Do it.
That's it. I had to get in some more inspiration and write again. Somebody was asking me the other day, have you written anything? I said, well, bits and pieces, you know, I've shelved them, but that's the other thing, though, Alan. I'm never 100% satisfied with anything I've ever written. I'm
glad to hear it.
Worst critic, you know.
No, seriously, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. You know, I always think, it could be better. That line doesn't, quite work somehow. But you can tamper too much, and then you end up just you can spoil.
You have to make
really.
a decision, don't you? You have to make a decision.
Really. Yes. You
Whether
do. Yeah.
whether you're writing for you, which everybody does, but whether you're writing for you and nobody else, or whether you're writing for you or a wider audience. And if you're writing for you, you will never get it right, ever.
No, that's
Never.
it. Yeah.
You've got to know when to put the pencil down. And sometimes I interviewed. I know him quite well. Mike Hardy used to be a mate. Used to be a mate. Like we've had a falling out. We live miles apart now, but I was a mate of his. And he wrote a song called Bomber's Moon, which is basically a poem with music.
Yeah.
And it's called Bomber's Moon because it's all about a bomber going over to Germany in the Second World War, dropping all its bombs. On its way back, it's shot down and everybody dies. And I didn't know that then, but it was the story of the way his father died. So that was that. I mean, I knew his mum's husband, as it were, wasn't his father. I knew that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was, and I happened to be on tour with him, just following him round on tour. I used to go occasionally and spend a week with him whilst he's touring round his 70-night tours and that. And I was on tour with him, and he just said to the crew when they were doing the sound check at 4:00 in Stockport. He said, "I've got a new song." I said, "All right, so we need to rehearse the lights and everything and get it all sorted." And he did this song called Bomber's Moon. It's about 4.5 minutes long, and it's a story all about this bomber. And he finished it, and I was on tour with him recording Life on the Road with Mike Hardy, and that was the thing we were making. And we went to the dressing room after the rehearsal, if you like, the practice of this song. He sat at his little, well, not little, but a baby grand, a Yamaha baby grand electronic. Sat there and just sang it like that. And I said, "How long did it take you to write that?" And he said, "It took a lifetime and half an hour." Wow. He said, "I've been thinking about it for all my life, really, because I've been living that life, the life of the boy whose father was killed in the war, been living that life." And he said, "So it took me a lifetime and half an hour when I finally decided what the form it was going to take and how I was going to get into it and whether it was going to be narrative or whether it was, and he just said, once I sat down, it took half an hour.
It just
took
flowed.
A lifetime.
Yeah. That's the thing.
But had he tried that a fortnight before, he might never have finished it. He might never have done it.
Exactly.
It's just the second's got to be right. When you write
it has,
anything.
Alan. Yeah, indeed, absolutely right. Yeah. So I need to, as I say, go on some long walks and get some inspiration. That's particularly in the countryside. You get. Well, it's not always about being away from people and hustle and bustle. You can get inspiration from sort of all kinds of situations, actually. And if you just remember that kind of idea, and then when you get a quiet moment, then you can put a few lines down and hope for the best. But yes, I shall.
And who knows?
Who knows, Alan? And I'll give it another go and see how it goes.
Good. Have a good night. Good to talk to you. 0800 218 2255. How do Arnold?
Arnold. I like to. Hold on, Arnold. Sorry.
Okay.
Is that better? Wait.
It seems all right.
Yeah, in my young years, I did electrics. My sisters did hairdressing, and mum and brother joined the army. The one studying modern art. Bibles. Colleges have changed on in schools. There's been a lot of new schools built on the schools and colleges. And also hospitals.
Yeah,
all that,
I have, yeah.
That baby murder, Lucy Letby, news tonight, I don't know what for. Horrible. Catweazle event. And did you see the woman athlete that fell near the end in the World Athletics? She was winning and she fell right near the end.
Oh dear.
You Google it after on. You Google it after.
That's not good.
No.
I don't want to watch somebody...
England women lost, John. Spain beating.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
1-0.
1-0, yeah. So, when your final show on, you got one sorted yet? It was a date.
Don't know yet.
No chance of carrying on. Extending. My dad retired at 65. He went back to work at 73 because there's more money working than on pension.
Right.
It's all about the money now, job incentives. Most jobs, anyway.
It's part. The money's important. I mean, we wouldn't do what we do for now, would we?
No, running up and down, boxing, football. Football don't use money now, aren't they? Footballers.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah. Did Fulham beat Brentford yourself, or did Brentford beat Fulham?
I've no idea.
No, I heard 3-0. Yeah. What song are you playing at the end of the show? Same one?
Always the same one, yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of Irish grew up in this country. And, did you have any Irish neighbours where you was living in your neighbourhood? Irish family?
I suppose we must have. I don't actually know any specific people.
Was you brought up on the council estate?
Yes.
Yeah. Which one?
One in Wellington called... One in Wellington called Orford.
Oh, Orford, yeah. Have you heard of a council estate in one called Windmill Hill Lounge?
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. You don't drink, do you, much, or you don't drink at all?
Probably not much is probably a more accurate answer, but not at all is close enough.
Yeah. So there's a lot of new micro pubs open up everywhere now, small pubs.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of charity shops.
I've noticed a lot of charity shops. I've not noticed a lot of pubs.
Yeah.
Anyway, Arnold, it's always a treat. Good to talk to you. You asked what music was. Well, it's Ringo Starr, and now's the time to say good night.
At 1 o'clock, this is Jason Kay. Lucy Letby, the nurse convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill another 6 at the Countess of Chester Hospital, will be sentenced later today. The hearing at Manchester Crown Court will begin with the parents of some of the babies reading out impact statements, but Letby is not expected to be in court. There are growing calls for defendants to be penalised for refusing to attend sentencing hearings, but the former barrister Alex Dean doesn't think that would make much difference.
The idea that you're going to say to someone facing a life sentence, they'll get 6 months added on if they don't sit still and stop lashing out and screaming. It makes no difference to them. In the end, there is very little you can do to compel people in this situation to behave themselves. And let's be frank about this. I don't mean to be upsetting. They've done far worse in order to get themselves here than misbehaving in court.
King Charles has led tributes to England's women's football team after they lost to Spain in the World Cup final in Sydney. He said England's skill, determination and team spirit would serve as an inspiration for generations to come. Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer and Saad Davey also praised the team's efforts. The Spanish Queen joined the winners on the pitch to celebrate their victory, and these fans in Madrid were delighted.
It's a beginning that we are winning, more people is interested.
Today is the day that women can finally get the spot that they deserve.
Surrey County Council has confirmed that Sarah Sharif, the 10-year-old girl found dead in Woking last week, was known to them. Police in Pakistan are looking for her father, his partner and his brother. The West African grouping ECOWAS has rejected an announcement by the coup leader in Niger that it'll be 3 years before civilian rule is restored. The organisation's political commissioner said that the timetable was unacceptable. The authorities in California say there's been a 5.1 magnitude earthquake as the state's preparing for the arrival of Tropical Storm Hillary. Torrential rain and 70-mile-an-hour winds are already battering Mexico's Pacific coast. Our correspondent in Los Angeles, Peter Bowes, says the two events occurring together is unprecedented.
Astonishment in this city that we should have two major events like this, a once-in-a-lifetime tropical storm combined with an earthquake in the same moment. We're still checking to see whether there has been any significant damage in the earthquake. No reports as yet, but clearly it is early days, and people, of course, still turning their attention to the potential tropical storm damage that hasn't happened yet, because the storm is still moving its way up the Pacific coast from Mexico.
Russia's space agency says its first mission to the moon in almost 50 years has failed. Roscosmos said its uncrewed Luna 25 spacecraft, which was due to search for signs of water, spun out of control and